Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kim Sabo, President and CEO of the Arizona Lodging and Tourism Association. And I thank you all for joining us today for Tourism Talk, AZLTA's webinar series of conversations with industry leaders. We've got a very special program for you today, focusing on what is top of mind for all travelers right now, and that is cleanliness, health, and safety, and its role in restoring consumer confidence and thus travel. We all know that the travel and tourism industry is intrinsically tied to the vitality of the state's economy and to the economies of all of our rural communities. Today, we've got a great panel of extraordinary leaders with the city of Page, leaders who came together and led with solutions in a time of the most dire of circumstances for this industry. The COVID-19 pandemic that started roughly 15 months ago. Joining us today, please welcome Mayor of Page, Mayor Bill Dyack. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
We also have Economic Development Coordinator for the City of Page and President and CEO of Visit Page, Greg Martinez. Greg, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And Executive Director of the Lake Powell Chamber of Commerce, Judy Franz. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining us, and compliments to all of you for coming together at a time when this industry faced the worst crisis ever, wiping out 10 years of job growth and really halting travel overnight. You all came together from early on in the pandemic and led with solutions. And I'm really excited to share this with the audience today. And I know that there are going to be a lot of questions from the audience interested in what you did and how you did it to turn Page around, reestablish that consumer confidence, and message that out to the rest of the world, essentially. I'm going to ask that those that are registered, if you'd like to contribute questions, you can use the chat box, and the team will be checking that chat box. I'll do my best to siphon through those and ask as many of those questions to our panel as possible. Well, it's hard to believe, as I mentioned a moment ago, it's been 15 months since the impacts of COVID-19 have been felt in Arizona. They hit us quickly and they hit us dramatically, as I mentioned, overnight. And not to mention at the most inopportune of times, springtime here in Arizona, where we're welcoming visitors from around the world. Here in Phoenix, in the Phoenix area, spring training, we've got spring break, the beautiful spring weather, and it was as if the economy stopped overnight. And that had an effect on cities across the state, the country, and the world. And again, here today to talk about how this was managed from a city's perspective, we're talking to the city of Page, and we're going to talk about your resilience, your leadership, and how you reestablished consumer confidence. Again, it's been a year, a little over a year, so we're going back into high season when this hit a year ago. And so I'm going to start it off right away by going to you, Mayor. If you could do the honors, I'd love to paint a picture of Page for the audience. For those of you that have not been fortunate enough to visit Page, Mayor, give us your best chamber picture of Page.
Well, for me, it started many years ago, back in 1959, actually 58, when I first came here. If you like the outdoors and you like the serenity of red rocks and canyon country, then Page is a place to come and explore that outdoors in an unencumbered and not a crowded arena. Although over the last few years, tourism has brought a lot more people to the area, but we still got a lot of space out there that you can get yourself lost in and enjoy the great outdoors. So that's one of the things that I enjoy about this area.
Greg, I'd love to go to you, get your perspective, paint us the picture.
I moved up to Page about 10 years ago. I was one of the many Phoenicians that had never visited Page up until that point. And I just remember driving up thinking to myself, I am going to a different planet. I am literally driving to a totally different planet. And when I got to Page, it was like Mayberry. It was just that picturesque town that sits on a mesa, like what you'd see in Looney Tunes with Wile E. Coyote. And I just couldn't believe I felt like I had arrived, like coming from Southern California, coming from the Valley, coming from Tucson, getting to Page just was like such a breath of fresh air. You could just see for miles, and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And so I moved up here and established roots, and every visitor that's my family that comes to visit, they just want to sit outside. They just want to take a look at the beauty around themselves. They want to hear the silence. I mean, that's the best part about visiting Page, is that you're almost going into a time machine where you don't have to hear the helicopters, and you don't have to hear the airplanes. You don't have to hear a bunch of cars. You can still be around a lot of really great people. So if you haven't visited Page, I'm sure I'll see you this summer.
Well, and as you mentioned, you almost feel like you're in a different world.
Yeah.
If you're driving from Phoenix to Page, I've done it many, many times. I've been fortunate enough, and you do go through some incredibly unique terrain, and it's just extraordinary. Very, very unique. Judy, I'll go to you with the same question. Paint the picture, and then we'll dig into what has happened after we hear from you.
Well, I was a Southern California girl. That's where I came from.
Common thread here with the Southern California.
Yes, so Southern California. And beyond that, I came up here in 2005. My husband's a fishing guide. And so we got up here because he was licensed up here at the park. And I've been up here. And for me, Page has been nothing but beauty, the water. I love it here. And the people that are here, they're like family. That's why I came here. And when I got here, I was immediately welcomed. And I can't imagine living anywhere else. I'm only sorry that my kids were not younger and they were up here living with me, although they do come frequently to see me here, as well as my friends. And it's amazing how many of my Southern California friends come here. So if you haven't visited Page, you need to visit Page, because it is absolutely a world away from the world, and you don't want to leave. So that's my opinion of it.
And Judy, don't worry about the phone ringing. That means that you're busy and people are calling to book, and they're coming in droves, because you all have done a fantastic job. So the phone ringing is a good sign. Keep it coming. So you've done a beautiful job of painting the picture. And again, Page is so unique, and the beautiful opportunity to get out on the water with Lake Powell. And let's transition now. We've got this beautiful picture painted, and I don't want to go to a bleak topic, but again, it's the elephant in the room, and it's what we've all experienced over the course of the last 15 months. What happened when COVID essentially washed up on shore, which it quite literally did, I guess, at Lake Powell, washed up on shore? How did that impact Page? Mayor, I'll start with you again.
Thank you. Kim, for us here, it, like everywhere else, we were kind of shocked, caught on guard. Although we started preparing for what happened with COVID about 4 to 5 months prior to when it happened, and we didn't know it. One of the things that we had coming up here, kind of unique other than COVID, is we lost the largest employer in our region in November of 2019. That was SRP, along with Peabody Coal. So we lost 2,600 jobs that year, or just 4 months before COVID started. So we'd already started a plan of shifting gears to making tourism our main revenue generator in our area. And tourism was well, but it wasn't our main thing. So when COVID hit, the main thing that happened is when we shut down everything, locked all the doors, no travel, no restaurants open, and everything during that period of time. So it was a real struggle for us, because for a lot of our other people that live in the area, they didn't have the shopping base or what they were used to. So it being as isolated as we are, it was very, very difficult for the people that lived here to even do anything or get anything with all of our businesses shut down until we went back to the essential services and things like that. So it was quite a struggle. Not used to seeing the streets totally empty all the time. So we were struggling. I think it was the toughest on our communities, individual members to begin with. The city itself, we managed to keep busy. We kept staff working as much as we possibly could. We were social distancing within City Hall, only essential people here, but we were able to keep the city business operating on a daily basis and not lose those services that were extremely important, which became more important because nobody had any resources to go to. So we were working hard to just keep our citizens aware of what was going on. It was a very difficult time for us.
So Greg, I'm going to go to you. You're charged with economic development, and you've just been hit with this this unprecedented challenge where everything falls off a cliff overnight. How do you respond?
Mayor Dyak hit the nail on the head. Just about 4 to 6 months prior, a lot of our community members had been relocated because of SRP closure of NGS. And that was devastating. I remember saying goodbye to friends and family, and it was really hard. And so when COVID hit, the very first thing I thought to myself was, without tourism, without the power plant, we're not going to have enough jobs available for people to stay. I'm going to do everything I can not to let another one of our friend, family, community member leave our town. So it was essentially just tell me what your problems are and let's solve them. And I was fortunate enough to have a really good partner in Judy Franz in the Page Lake Powell Chamber who tag teamed with me, and we were able to, canvass the area, the entire small business community. And we heard as many problems as we possibly could so that not only did they see the value of being allowed venting and being able to be heard, but we were also hearing some of their problems that as an economic developer, you would never think of. Obviously, we didn't game plan for a pandemic. I don't think many people did game plan for a pandemic, but we turned around with solutions immediately. It was like middle of the week that we were sent home and we went into lockdown. And I would say it was early that very next week, maybe Sunday or Monday that next week, where we started thinking post COVID-19. And it was that mind frame during all of the anxiety and fear that I think was kind of that rallying cry. It was, hey, we know that we were just, thrusted into a lockdown. We don't know. 24 hours, the news changed over and over and over again about COVID-19. A lot of fear, but we started immediately with a COVID-19 post-pandemic plan.
Congratulations on that. Just extraordinary work. Judy, I'm going to go to you. And as has been mentioned by both the mayor and by Greg, two of your biggest employers basically vanish overnight when COVID hits with SRP. And as you mentioned, tourism going away. And I think a topic that is growing in concern, and I don't mean to sound like an alarmist, but an impending crisis, if you will, for this industry is indeed workforce. We lost a lot of our workforce right out of the gates. And as we get into hopeful recovery, that's going to be an issue moving forward. But talk a little bit about the impact of that on your citizens, your community, losing essentially both of those economic engines.
Well, it was a very difficult time. I had about 247 members at that time. And I think for the people that are joining us, a lot of those are like friends and family to me. And there are a lot of mom and pop businesses We have a lot of the larger businesses, our soft candies and such. We have our marinas, but a lot of them are mom and pop businesses. And that was a major concern, and I knew them. So what my point was to reach out with Greg, which like we did. And I worked from home. I was home since March 15th to June 15th. I worked night and day, I will tell you, and so did Greg. They had our cell phones. We gave our cell phones out. They called us from morning, noon, and night on questions on what to do, how to do it, where can they go. I developed a Page Americans United Facebook page that actually a friend had started, but decided that that was way over what she knew how to do and asked me if I would step in. So that page became, for Greg and I would post on that 24/7 of information for people. And it was where to go, what to do. When we had things coming from the city, from the state, from the federal, that was all posted there. And I worried tremendously about these people because a lot of them were not knowing where their next dollar was going to come from. They hadn't planned for this, and all of a sudden, it's like somebody took a plug and let all the water out of the pool, and they were just standing there with nothing around them. So it was a huge issue for us and a big fear for all of us. I have a small business. I equally was concerned. It's just my husband and myself. So I knew what they were feeling. But then I also knew what our bigger companies were feeling as well, too, because I knew all of them. And many of them struggled because they lost all their workforce. And one point I think is important is that a lot of our people that live here, that live on the Navajo Nation, work here. They're all family oriented and they all live with each other. They're very tied to the family. This was a very hard move for them because many of them had to leave and they've lost their brothers and their sisters and their cousins and their grandchildren. So I think it was important for us to understand that component of the whole issue that arose for us.
Definitely very huge impact on families, communities, and just devastating. But again, compliments to you all. You can already feel just in the first 15 minutes of this webinar, the camaraderie and the collaboration that the city of Page exercised and has demonstrated. You've been a model, and AZLTA has been honored to work in lockstep with you. And I appreciate you painting the picture. Again, it's bleak, it's hard, it's dire, but what I want to focus on now is your resilience. And today marks the 1-year anniversary, coincidentally, of the launch of the AZLTA AZ SAFE+CLEAN initiative. This initiative was born of a model that was launched by the American Hotel and Lodging Association in an effort to, again, build that consumer confidence and demonstrate to the world that, okay, this is an industry that goes above and beyond with cleanliness, health, safety measures anyway. That's the hallmark of our industry, but we're taking it a step further. And we compliment you very much so because you did indeed reach out right away with the idea of not only getting an individual property certified, but getting the city of Page certified. And as you mentioned, you are a destination. People are going to Page Lake Powell as a destination. So critically important that you demonstrate that we are safe and clean, and as many organizations, businesses, venues in the city as possible really took these measures a step further to become certified. Greg, in our earlier conversations, you talked about convening and not wasting a moment and getting started in this. Can you kind of reflect back on that time when you decided, okay, we need to do something and this is what we're going to do, and that's reestablish consumer confidence?
Yeah, I remember shortly after the lockdown, I had a nightmare that a lot of people were moving away from Page, like they were moving towards the city. I remember I called Judy and I was like, we've got to do something. This is out of control. We have a lot of people who are scared, not just locally in Page, not just in the state of Arizona, not just in the United States, but globally. There's just this enormous fear cloud. And so we wanted to make sure that we got in front of as many people as possible so that they could know that their government, their chamber, their mayor was all in support and that we were all trying to solve this together. And that was one of the shocking things, I think, when the pandemic happened. I felt like people were waiting for that next rung up the ladder to solve their problem. solve our problem. When that wasn't happening, we took matters into our own hands. And like I said, we started thinking about a post-COVID-19 right away. That included, well, if we can't get a manufacturing plant open, right? We have one of the best fish baits manufacturers in the world called Yamamoto Fish Baits in Page, Arizona, international company. If we can't get people to safely and work there to manufacture, how in the world are we going to get our hotels back open at full capacity? And so Judy and I, along with the team, a community development team at the City of Page, started thinking about safe workplace. And that was really the first step for consumer confidence was, if I as a worker can't go to work, which is expected, and be safe, then how could I ever reason for myself to go and do something with leisure, which is a want, not a need? So we started immediately thinking about safe workplace. We created guidelines as far as like high risk, low risk, medium risk. And we determined very early on, worst case scenario was that this was an airborne illness. So we told as many small businesses that were on our daily Zoom meeting calls, anyone that would call, masks, wear a mask. Nobody was saying masks. We wanted people to mask up almost immediately. And that was just because we were reading medical journals and Center for Disease Control. We were so outside our realm of what we knew as a profession that we were just taking the textbook as the Bible, so to speak. If there is a pandemic happening, these are the ways to keep yourself safe. And we spread it as quickly as possible. We let them know this is what we think you need to do. And then when AZLTA came up with their Safe and Clean, for us, it was just a no-brainer. We saw the surge of tourism happening in August and September of 2020. And we felt that as we progress with vaccines and the president's telling us that Q1 of 2021 is going to be a big push for vaccinations, which coincides with our big tourism, which is Q2, Q3 of a calendar year. We felt like, okay, we got to make something happen now to let people know that we take this as seriously as it really is. And AZLTA was just the perfect fit when it came to this Safe and Clean.
Well, compliments. You guys have done a phenomenal job. Judy, if I could go to you and get your perspective on the same topic, sort of implementing those first steps early on, making a plan, and then collaborating and joining forces to implement AZ Safe and Clean.
Well, I will concur with what Greg was stating. We were on a lot of calls too with the Coconino County Health Department. Almost every week we were on 2-3 times a week, along with doing our own homework on it. And the big concern was to keep people safe. And we had a lot of people working that want to see managers of hotels who the owners are not even here. So for them, it was very much outside their box as to what to do, where to go. So we sort of became that lifeline for them as to what we would find out. We would check things out, double check things out to make sure that this is what they should be doing. But our whole goal was to keep them safe. And again, many of our employees that were here and that worked in the hotel industry, they live on the Navajo Nation. And as many of you know that are listening, the Navajo Nation was hit extremely hard. So for them, there was a fear factor there, understandably. And so we had to try to calm that fear factor and figure out what can we do. And we kept everything extremely positive. We did. Now we knew we weren't living in a Pollyanna world, but we knew that, okay, we're here. Now we go forward. We put the combat boots on and we go. And that's what we did. We just kept plodding forward till we could figure out what we're going to do. And it was scary for all of us. I won't deny it, and the mayor I know will say the same thing. It was scary for us, but we felt like we had to do something and we had to be there. And I'm proud to say that I was a part of this because most people looked at Page that they go, where? Page? Where's Page? Oh, it's that place up over Flagstaff. And as I stated, we're there now. People know where Page is at. We wanted to make ourselves heard. So the other component for me was I was never shy as a child, and I'm not shy now. So I started reaching out to congressmen. I reached out to the senators. I reached out to anybody that I could to get answers, and we'd share with Greg and share with the mayor. And it's like, let's just take this information. So that's how I saw it, and that's what my part was in it.
Absolutely. That's great. And I thank you for sharing that. You mentioned scary. It was also unpredictable. The rules of engagement, if you will, kept changing. Start, stop. We can expand the numbers. We have to retract the numbers. Cases kept changing. So there was that inability to really plan, and guidance kept changing. So Mayor, talk to us about that in this unprecedented situation where you're dealing with something that's unknown and the information keeps changing. How did you handle that?
Well, I'm going to defer that and point out to the fact that during that COVID period, I was actually at a hiatus and out of office, came back in November of 2020. But during that process, when COVID came about, Greg and Judy partnered up, and on a bi-weekly basis, they were out there talking to, they had a business Thursday and a tourism Tuesday. They were out there talking to all of those entities, Zooming and finding out their concerns, their needs, and then trying to refine how we move forward. So we were working that every week to refine it and get better and better at it. And I have to say that all of our businesses, as well as our, not only our hotels, but our mom and pop hardware stores and all of those things, everybody stepped up to the plate and took that extra step to make everyone feel comfortable and safe. So when Arizona Safe and Clean came about, it just seemed like it was the next step for us to get on board with that and promote it and utilize that to our public that we know was concerned about, well, I want to get out there, but where do I want to go? Where am I going to feel safe? Where am I going to be comfortable and stuff? So that was a big part of it. One thing that did help us in getting all of our hotels, 100% of them on board is our close proximity to one another. It's, you know, if you go down there and you try to hit all the hotels in Phoenix, you're covering a lot of miles. Well, Page, a community of 16 square miles, it was very, very easy for us to get out and make the trip around to all those managers and those owners one-on-one. And that's exactly what we did. Matter of fact, Greg gave me a list and he says, these are yours. So I went out and actually visited with those owners and managers, as well as Greg. And, you know, within about a matter of what, a couple weeks, Greg, we had everybody on board.
Yeah.
So it was fun also because it was something outside what we normally did. And we were able to meet that challenge and get her done. So it's paid off for us. Now as we are opening back up, even last year in the late summer and stuff, people wanted the outdoors. So it was evident to us that we were seeing some of those first people coming out because they were out in the outdoors, and that's still happening again and continuing right now. So we were glad that we were prepared for that, and it's worked well for us.
Well, Mayor, you provide the perfect transition, and that is, I'd love to talk about what are the three pillars of the Arizona Lodging and Tourism Association, and that is advocacy, collaboration, and education. And you all have done all of those so beautifully in this time of crisis. Judy, I've heard you mention several times today already the advocacy work that you've done in reaching out to elected officials and policymakers. So I'd like to ask you about the importance of advocacy and what that has done to better position you.
That's a great question. Thank you, Kim. I think for me, I've always been a fighter, and I will continue to fight for the little guy. And I've always been that way. And so when this all happened, I thought, we've got to fight, we've got to get out there, but I had to have more knowledge. This was something that hit us that we had no knowledge of, where to come from, how to get here, who's it affecting. So I had to teach myself and learn as much as I could. And then the natural for me was to reach out to the people who had some answers or could find the answers. So if I didn't have an answer, I would go get the answer. And I think that that's where the advocacy came in. And one of the things that we did for the chamber members was, as you know, chamber, most of you that are on the line would know that we fundraise to keep ourselves going in our membership. Well, I can tell you, the majority of my members could not pay their dues and not expected to pay. We've kept every one of our members on without payment, kept going to keep them on, to keep their information out there. So when the day happened and we opened our doors, they were all right out there in forefront. And that was one thing that our board and we decided to do, is to continue to help them. The advocacy was, as you know, the ADA loan came out, the PPP loan came out. It was difficult. I myself was going, I don't understand all this, but let me go learn about it. So that's when I was reaching out to the senator and both senators, and I reached out to Congressman O'Halloran, and they were extremely helpful. And the members that I had that were going through the EIDL process, going through the PPP loan, that didn't understand it or got stuck in the system, I would get them to them. And we had 53 cases that I was able to get through this channel. By doing it that way, they were able to help them. So I was just basically the link. I was one of the links to get people help. And I think we had to do that. We just felt like we have to do absolutely everything. And I had to exhaust every avenue. And we're still not done. We're still working on things, but we're getting close. And I will report that last month, for the month of April, for our Page Lake Powell Hub, which is part of the Chamber, it's an official Arizona Office of Tourism Visitor Center, we had 679 people come to Page. And that's amazing after what we've been through. And we just felt like, wow, you know, this is fantastic. And we were so grateful.
That's fantastic. And I will say, if I could chime in and give my 2 cents on advocacy, I don't think it's ever been more important than it is right now. The advocating and then the collaborating, coming together as an industry holistically. And I know we have a lot of viewers today from different cities and towns across the state who have experienced the same hardships, but we as a unified collective voice will make a difference if we lock arms, we advocate and convene and educate our policymakers on the impacts that this industry has on the state's economic vitality. It is the lifeblood of the state, almost entirely in most of rural Arizona. And the return on investment is proven. For every dollar invested in tourism promotion, it yields a $10 return. So the more we can encourage together collectively as an industry to continue to come together and tell the story of this industry, the better. And again, I keep going back to compliments, but you guys have been this model of, you know, what I like to point to as a model of success in the most trying of times. Greg, I'm going to go to you and have you touch on any one of the 3 pillars that you'd like to: the advocacy piece, collaboration, or education. The 4th pillar is communication, because as Judy mentioned, you all became that go-to for information and resources at a time when resources were slim to none financially.
Yeah, we, you know, I had a different career. Government and economic development is rather new to me. Prior to this, I was in the clinical psychology realm, working specifically in crisis and post-traumatic stress. So it's almost like fate interceded, because what I've learned in crisis situations is that every second counts. Every moment, the longer you wait to deal with the crisis, the worse the outcome is. And so I just pulled from my previous experience, and I used as much collaboration as possible. I admitted to my community that I'm not the expert in these areas. I'm not the expert when it comes to understanding a virus that our top infectious disease individuals and doctors didn't understand either. I made no excuses. I left my ego at the door. And there were times where I cried with them, because it was devastating. What people don't understand is we ramp up. These businesses were ramping up with their employees right before the pandemic happened. So the season slows down December, January, February. They have their nest egg that they're saving their money. And then they spend it in February because March, April, and then all the way to November is a very busy season. They want to get their employees. Well, a lot of businesses had spent their savings to get their businesses ready for this tourism season. And then tourism season was effectively canceled. And so we had, like Judy said, mom and pop shops who are like, I don't know how I'm going to buy food today. I don't know how I'm going to get groceries. I don't know how I'm going to put gas in my car. I don't know how I'm going to get these very basic needs. And I think by relating to them on a human to human platform, not expert economic developer, not clinical psychologist, just Greg and fill in the blank who I was talking to, that support was genuine and it was authentic, which allowed for our small business to be vulnerable. And when they were vulnerable, I understood where they were coming from, which helped us solve their problem. And I pulled, it wasn't just these individuals who are in this webinar. There was the SBDC with Gina Couliard, she covered Coconino County. I don't think people realize Coconino County is the second largest county in the country. Is that right, Mayor?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
San Bernardino's #1.
Right. So Gina with SBDC, it was her and one other person that covered the largest county, the second largest county in the country. And I think when people felt the vibe that Judy and I were putting out there, like, it's go time. We're not quitting. There is no off day. There is no weekend. There is no vacation. It is go time right now. That it was infectious. Yeah, no pun intended. But it was something that other people picked up. And when I was able to pull in experts from Dr. Joseph Guzman, Economic Policy Institute at NAU, helped create, SBDC, Tim Swan, who's now with Wickenburg, the ACA, AZ OSHA, Springdale in Utah, Moab. We organized and activated in such a quick way that I feel like for a lot of the individuals that we worked with that were not Page locals, they felt that energy we had. There were a lot of people that are downtrodden. There were a lot of people that were depressed and anxious, and a lot of for business, they didn't understand what it felt like to lose their profit, their revenue, and that was crushing. That was devastating for a lot of individuals. And so instead of us saying, woe is I, woe is me, poor us, Judy and I fought. And the more that we got vocal, the more that we fought and stood up and said, we're going to get through this. We're going to come back stronger. We're going to be better. The more that the Arizona Commerce Authority rallied with us, the more that AZ OSHA rallied with us, the more that Coconino County Health Department rallied with us, the more that our own community rallied with us. And at the end of the day, it was about protecting our way of life, not just for Page, not just for Coconino County, but for Arizona in itself. And so collaboration was the most important element when it comes to the 3 pillars.
Great perspective and insight. Thank you for sharing that. Mayor, I'll go to you with the same question.
Collaboration went way beyond business and our tourism part of it. From a city standpoint, one of the things that we saw that we became a huge need for us was that people's resources and how to get a hold of them dried up. You were calling where if you had a problem with a Social Security issue, or you had a problem with a utility issue or something like that, you tried to get that taken care of. There was nobody answering those phones. So the city itself, who remained open during that, continued to be that resource to help people connect with the everyday things that they needed to get accomplished. Because even today, some of those services in larger part of the government are still unmanned. So we found ourselves being that resource that people would call us and say, hey, I need to get a hold of these people. I can't, nobody's answering the phones. So being connected to the other entities and government entities in and around us and our county and our state and functioning internally, we had those resources. We knew how to get a hold of those people and say, hey, this person has this thing going on. They need help. And then connect the two and make sure that people felt more comfortable and that they just weren't out there on their own all alone. And that became huge. It wasn't just an easy process, because it wasn't just the businesses, but individuals were impacted. So we got to remember that it's about all of us, and that's where our collaboration is so important, and it's still continuing today.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. And I go back to the word that Judy used earlier, scary. It was a scary time with little information. We're all going through the same thing together, unprecedented. Never had experienced this in our lifetime. So pulling together, and your story of pulling together is really, really special. I'm going to transition a little bit now and talk about the light at the end of the tunnel. We're seeing, obviously, numbers have eased, guidance is easing, events are starting to happen. We're seeing, obviously, leisure travel increasing at a nice rate. I'd like to talk about what I mentioned earlier, and that is the problem facing us as things are opening up and travel is happening again. Workforce. I'm hearing this from virtually every member that I talk to. They can't get enough workers. They would love to open up more rooms, but they simply can't find the workforce to service the properties and be there for the visitors. So I'd love to, Judy, I'll go to you and ask you for ideas on how do we address this issue?
Well, I think one of the issues is one part of that issue, and one component has been that they are stopping this unemployment the way it had been, which has been a motive for people to stay home. And I heard that from many people, that they wanted to hire back and they said, no, I can stay home and make more money. Or they were actually bartering with the business owner, saying, well, I have to make this or I'm not coming back. So, and it was very frustrating for these owners and for these managers and such. The question is, we are going, how do we get people back to work again? What motive how can we motivate them to go back to work? And something that came out interesting is that we have one of my gals reached out to me, who's a teacher in town, and she is leaving the area and coming down actually your way. But she had some young people in high school that were looking to possibly learn how to work, get some skills, get some internship going. And so, and Greg and I talked about this, we had to get these kids more motivated out there anyway. So I said, great, let's work on that. So one of the areas she's doing is she did resumes. They're called the Avid Kids, and it's a gifted program of kids that have really excelled in school. And so they have done resumes, and I've got people now calling me saying, send me those resumes. I'd like to look at these people. And so, I mean, it's the younger group, but I started out young, and I think that there are some jobs out there that they can let the young people be trained. Internship, we got to get these kids back in with vocational stuff so that they learn how to do it. And I know that for us, and many of you know, we have the slot canyons here. We're all praying they're going to be opening any day. Every week, Greg and I ask the same question. Do you know anything? We have our fingers crossed. Is it going to be open? And so does the mayor. We all do. And we just did a big letter yesterday to support getting them back open. Send it to President Nez. And for them, they've got to get all their staff back. And there is a fear factor in there for them, because a lot of these people are afraid to come back. They're afraid of this virus. So we have to continue to educate, and we have to get out there, and we have to motivate. And I'm hoping that people will start to relax more and feel more relaxed and want to come back to work. And also the managers, you gotta get out there and make them want to come back. And I'm not saying that it's all about the money. If you're a good manager, you're a good business owner, there's a way to get people back to work that they are going to feel comfortable and they're going to want to be back to work. You got to have them feel their worth as well. And that would be my advice.
Yeah, and
Great.
just to piggyback off.
Great input. Yeah, Greg, I'll go to you.
Just to piggyback off what Judy said, was we got ahead of it way early. We started having a Workforce Wednesday meeting probably sometime in April or May. And what we identified was that the people who were showing up to work right now were going to be the most important workers for those individuals. So we created workforce programs with Coconino Community College. Thank you very much, Kay Liam and CCC. And we started doing workforce trainings on distress tolerance, which is a psychological term for the ability to withstand extremely distressful times and not succumb to them. So we started giving our workforce a mental toolkit so that we could protect the ones who are already there. And in that case, when we got down a year down the road, when things started opening up more, we didn't have too much attrition from the initial blow, so to speak. But we talk about workforce all the time. I mean, we still have a Workforce Wednesday that happens every other Wednesday. And we pull in our resources, going back to the 3 pillars, collaboration. We wanted to make sure that we had enough resources available for our small businesses that when they opened, they would be able to not, of course, have full staff, but have adequate staff to cover their needs. And then we also started planting the seed very early last year, right, Judy? We started talking about, you have to start thinking about hiring the youngsters, you know, the 16 and 17-year-olds. And a lot of businesses were very turned off by that. They're like, why do we want to deal with kids? And I'm like, yeah, they are young, right, Judy? Yeah, they are young, but these are individuals who are ready to be trained and ready to get into work. And you have a choice, general manager of a hotel. You can be the front desk supervisor. You can be the night auditor. You can be the general manager, the housekeeper as well. Or you can try to hire some younger kids than you're used to. And we've seen some good success with them hiring the youth out of our high school, which is a huge tip of our cap to the training programs that are happening, the CTE programs that are happening at our high school and Page Unified School District. So it was a lot of futuristic thinking. There were a lot of things that we were like, this is, you know, Conan O'Brien used to have this year 2000 thing, which I used to love as a kid. And, you know, in the year 2000, and we were predicting in the year 2021, what's going to be our biggest struggle? And we said in the very beginning, it's going to be workforce. So we need to start being proactive to protect the workers that are there. And then we need to open up the general manager's minds to something that they're not used to.
I couldn't agree more. And I think this is a topic that is so important. And you hit the nail on the head. And that is building that talent pipeline and encouraging our youth, younger kids, to explore a career path. It's not just a job, but a career path in this industry. There is such opportunity, upward mobility, and trajectory to really excel. And I talked to so many of my general managers, higher ups that started cleaning rooms, washing dishes, you name it, in a number of jobs. And I think that as an industry, the conversation has really elevated and evolved to making this, not making it, it already is a very sexy industry, but doing almost a marketing campaign around attracting our youth to explore this as a career path, because we know the opportunities are endless, and upward mobility is indeed there. So I would echo that entirely. And you mentioned some of our educational institutions, and hats off and compliments to them. And we as an association are working hard to really fortify those relationships and grow our foundation. We have an education foundation arm that we look forward to partnering with you on, and again, growing those relationships with our communities throughout the state and our educational institutions, and collaborating, matchmaking, if you will, to attract the youth. We've got to build out our talent pipeline. Mayor, I'd love to go back to you on the topic of talent and workforce.
Greg and Judy touched on it really well, and gave a good segue for where I'm going on that. As much as we've prepared for coming out of COVID and moving to the whatever we're going to develop into, our biggest challenge today is that workforce still. Locally here, the problem that we're having with the workforce, as Judy talked about, and there's another fold of that. We're kind of a seasonal, as it's like Phoenix. And maybe your lodging industry is not the biggest or the busiest during the summer months, but for us up here, it's the opposite. We are. So along with having the workforce not available, we lost probably 1/4 to 1/3 of our workforce because they were J2 people. They came from overseas and were on work programs throughout us. Almost 1,200 people came through our J2 programs from overseas. Not a one of them can come here. So that left us with even a bigger hole. And that's why Greg's talking about this younger workforce. It's a seasonal, they're off for the summer and stuff. And we're still struggling trying to fill a lot of those entry-level positions. And in some cases, they pay better than minimum wage because of the fact that in the hospitality industry, sometimes there's some tips and things like that go along with it. So we're still struggling. Most of our hotels and lodging industry are really, really struggling. Like Greg was saying, we have a lot of managers that are juggling 3 or 4 hats, and it's difficult for them. But that's our biggest challenge right now, is the workforce.
And you talked about the visas and the importance of that. And again, I go back to advocacy, because we do advocate at the local, state, and national, the federal level. And that is top of mind as an important point of advocacy, because it does really help us build and grow our workforce. Mayor, you also talked about sort of the slightly different high seasons depending on where you are in the state. So maybe collaborating on flows, if you will, and opportunities. You see that at the ski resorts all the time, where you sort of have seasonal workers, and building out those programs with a little more, is robustness a word? Anyway, I'm going to use it anyway. If it's not, would be helpful. So we've only got a few minutes left, and I really want to give you all the opportunity to, I'm going to go back to where I started and highlight Paige. I think we're going into your very high season. We've got Memorial Day right around the corner. I've got friends that are heading up your way. And I do have a question that came in, and it's talking about so many people being excited for events to return. And when might events such as Palooza return, or be expected to come back? So who's best equipped to answer the Palooza?
Mayor, do you want me to take it?
Absolutely.
I want to know about Palooza and why I haven't been there.
Palooza was a music festival that happened over a 2 or 3 day event. We have a natural amphitheater that's just absolutely gorgeous, off the mesa, over more towards Antelope Valley and Antelope Slot Canyons. As far as events, because we felt like we could be safe, keep our community safe, keep our employees safe, we started hosting softball and baseball tournaments back in September and October. So we were active in sports tourism, and it was super unique because for the most part, sports tourism can't come to Page because our ADRs are so high. You know, a lot of our average daily rates, are so high. And because the pandemic, obviously our rates adjusted to match that. So we are all for events. You know, for everyone that's listening, if you don't have 4th of July plans, you're coming to Page because we're having a 2-day weekend event. It's going to be huge, a lot of fun. Band, bear garden, DJ. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Some of the best 4th of July fireworks in the state.
That's right, over the Colorado River. That's a memory for a lifetime. So what I'm going to tell you is that we are open for Palooza. If there's anyone that wants to bring a music festival here, we're game. In fact, we just bought a mobile stage that I call it the Optimus mobile stage because it's a semi truck that transforms into a mobile stage. So it's kind of like a transformer, but I'm dating myself. But we're all for it. I think that the community is ready for another Palapalooza. And I bet you, you know what, Judy, I bet you we have a new task ahead of ourselves. How do we get ourselves a new music festival going?
We'll get it going. And we're going to have also those who love our balloon regatta. That is coming back this year. We're excited. We lost it, and we just, that's a major fundraiser because we do the vendor fair part of it for the chamber. We equally will have music, we'll have things for the kids, we'll have food trucks, all kinds of showcasing people's, you know, wares that they're going to be bringing. We'll have the beer garden, and that's going to be happening the first weekend in November. So we are bringing that back. So we want events back. Greg and I have been talking about events since day one. We got to get them back. We got to get them out there. I know that for my own chamber members, they want to see our mixers come back. I actually did do a couple virtual Zoom mixers during the time, just to get people together that, you know, wanted to try to get together and just say hello. But we're back. I think Paige is back, and I'm so proud of everything that's happened. I'm proud of what Greg's done. The mayor and I have been friends for a very long time, and even though he wasn't in office, I think I rang his phone just as much as he was in office, because so I was able to call and pick his brain on things. So we're all back, and we're excited. And I can tell you, the lake last year did phenomenal during COVID, because it was a place for people to get away and be outdoors. This year, it's tenfold now. So it is really busy out there, and we're seeing a lot of companies sprouting up that are doing water sports now, getting out, more tour companies coming in. So if people didn't know where Paige was, people will know now.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm fortunate to know exactly where it is and have been there many times. And, you know, in recovery, you are certainly positioned beautifully with your open spaces and outdoor venues and attractions, and the lake with all that the lake has to offer. So this is, yeah, your opportunity, Mayor, to give your shameless plug to encourage visitors to come to your beautiful city.
Well, I'm always shameless, and Greg holds me to that. If I were to be promoting us, I would promote certain things, certainly throughout the summer months. Hey, a float trip down the Colorado River from the Dam to Lee's Ferry. I mean, there is no greater 3 to 4 hours that you can spend. If you're looking to get out of town this fall, certainly our balloon regatta and vendor fair. It's a almost 2.5, 3-day event. And next to Albuquerque, it is the largest balloon and fair event in the West. It is awesome. And you can participate, and you can fly if you're willing to crew with some of the balloonists. We'll have approximately 60 balloons flying up here over that weekend, and it is awesome. If you've never seen it or experienced it, it's a real experience.
Greg's shaking his head. Is that a not for you, Greg?
No,
You'll run the show. You'll be the boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground is the opportune word right there.
Well,
also really quick, Kim, just mentioned that all the land tours that we have up here, a lot of people think, you know, it's just the lake, or it could be a slot canyon. We've been having to utilize these tour companies now that have cropped up that are doing all these gorgeous land tours. So for those that are coming up that want to get out and see some of the great sites, give us a call. My visitor center can book for you, and we can also enlighten you and send you everything about what's out here to go see. But it's a gorgeous place out here. You won't see stars, and you won't see any stars like you see up in Page. Look up in the sky at night. It's absolutely gorgeous.
That's one of my most favorite things to do. Lay on the top of the houseboat at night, and the stars you see are just like no other. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us. Thank you for your leadership, for your collaboration, your advocacy, all the work you've done, and compliment you and congratulate you on a job extraordinarily well done. You all heard it here. Page is open for business, welcoming visitors, so much to offer, and they are AZ Safe and Clean certified, the entire city. So again, thanks for joining us today. Hope you all learned a lot from this extraordinary panel. And if you have any questions about AZ Safe and Clean or are interested in becoming the next city that is certified, please reach out to the AzLTA team. Mayor, Greg, Judy, thank you again. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, and we'll be visiting with you really soon.
Thank you very much, Kim.
Thank you very
Enjoyed
much.
your time.
Thank you.